Hi everyone, Autumn here, and I come to you as always as a life coach and as an individual who understands narcissistic abuse all too well, having been in a relationship and married to a diagnosed personality disorder and comorbid with borderline, with traits of antisocial. So the trifecta of cluster B personality disorders. So today I want to talk to you about lying. As you know, if you've been in a relationship with somebody who has narcissism, and I'll use the word narcissism as a general term for borderline and all the other cluster B, psychopath, sociopath, and so on. So you know what I'm talking about when I talk about lying being pervasive and being just this mainstay of their disorder, and how absolutely destructive their lying is and can be for so many people that they encounter, especially if you're in a romantic relationship with them or you're married to them, and or you have a parent that's doing this, anybody that's extremely close to you that has a big impact on your life. The lying, here's why lying in and of itself is so detrimental and so enormously hurtful and harmful, destructive to your life. Yes, there's the element of betrayal and trust and so on. Of course, that's all emotional based though. But when you come to the practical part of your life, we as humans make choices in our lives based on the information we're given. So we make choices about what we're going to do, how we're going to handle something, when and where do we commit. Big choices like getting married to small choices like where to go for dinner. And oftentimes these choices are made based on not oftentimes, always, based on the information, the external information we get from the world around us and the people around us. So for example, I'll give you an example when it comes to picking a restaurant to go to and why lying does affect your life in a significant way. Let me propose this scenario. You go online to a review site like Yelp. You want to go to this restaurant, you've never been there. The information on there says this restaurant is wonderful. They keep the kitchen so clean. Okay, you have this information, so you choose to go there. But let's say that information is a lie. Somebody hired by the restaurant or for whatever the reason, probably, of course, self-gain, motivation, lying is almost always about that, preserving themselves and coming out ahead. So let's say the restaurant hired someone or had somebody put fake reviews up. And now I pick this restaurant out of all the restaurants I could go to based on this information that was a lie. I go there and it turns out, yeah, kitchen's not so clean after all, because that was a lie. And I get food poisoning and I end up in the hospital. I haven't had that exact scenario happen, but I have gotten food poisoning from a restaurant so bad that I ended up in the hospital. But my point with that story is that we don't realize, and a lot of people don't put the credit into understanding the enormous impact that lies and disinformation or lying by omission has on people. We aren't mind readers, and we as humans are, the way our brain works, we aren't able to come up with rational decisions unless we look at the information around us, the people around us, the information we get. Actually, people that don't do that would probably be narcissists, right? They're making decisions, well, when they're on their game, they're making decisions based on the information they're given, and they exploit the information. But also in the same token, they often, and you will know this in the context of your relationship with them, that they will make decisions based not on rational logic or information, just purely on what they want in that moment. And that's destructive. That's a destructive attribute to have. So let's go back and morph it into and correlate it into what I was talking about before with the lying. The lying has that enormous impact. Okay, so when we talk about narcissists and the cluster B personality disordered people, lying seems to be one of the core personality attributes and behaviors in which they engage in. Their lying runs the gamut. I think that often narcissists lie for the sake of lying. I know with my ex-husband, there were plenty of times where he would lie about something that to me seems so insignificant. He would lie about something also that I would be able to find out about very easily. I want to give you an example of Tom, who I spoke about before, a friend who was a narcissist. Now looking back, I can see it, and his pathological lying, and how absurd it is. Just absurd. So this is 10 years ago or so, maybe more. I don't know. What are we in? 2015? Gosh, 12, 13 years ago. Anyway, Tom was roommates with one of my good friends, Maddie, so we were all good friends. He had gone out of town and had said that he was going to New Orleans. So we pick him up at Chicago O'Hare, where we're from, and we go to the gate, and we already had some suspicions, like, why do you go to New Orleans? And there was something weird that he had said. So we go to the gate to meet him, or near the gate, or by the baggage claim rather, and see that the baggage claim's coming in from Detroit, where we know Tom was originally from Detroit. So we ask him, hey, where did you come from? Oh, New Orleans, it was so great. He starts telling us stories and stories about Bourbon Street and about this and who he saw and all. I mean, just elaborate stories. And we're kind of kicking each other and like winking in the car. And we get back to their place and we're hanging out. And it was so funny. We were watching TV. And back in the day, Michigan used to have these tourist commercials. And the song was something like, come to Michigan. I don't know, I'm a horrible singer right now, but it's something cheesy like that. And we were watching TV, and suddenly the tourist commercial comes up, come to Michigan, and we just start busting out laughing. And Tom gets all haughty. What are you laughing at? What are you laughing at? And stomps away. Because we had asked him if he was in Detroit, and she lied. So it goes on, and he keeps lying and lying and lying, building bigger stories upon bigger stories. Finally, he said to us, just so you'll believe me, let's call United Airlines right now and talk to the ticket agent, and they will tell you that what flight it was on and where it came from. So we go, okay. So he calls United Airlines. We get on the phone with somebody, say blah blah blah. What was Tom's itinerary? Blah blah. And the lady told us he flew into Detroit on this day, and he flew out, earlier that day, Detroit. And it's funny because we always laughed. His luggage had ORD for the airport code, which we're from Chicago. ORD is O'Hare International Airport. But he was trying to convince us that ORD meant New Orleans. And so for all these years with my friend Maddie and I have had that running joke. New Orleans, ORD is New Orleans, But going back to Tom, he calls the ticket agency or the United Airlines. We actually talked to the lady, and she tells us the truth. I mean, it's in our computer. He continues to lie and say they must have gotten it wrong. They must have gotten it wrong. Never admitted to it, ever. The thing was, it was so pathological, right? And so absolutely grandiose that you would actually get, knowing the truth, that you were in Detroit and not New Orleans, knowing that you're going to call the airline, the person's going to say what really happened. And that's why I started to realize with Tom and other people I've met that are true narcissists, that they believe their own lies to a certain degree. Nothing else would make sense. There's no other explanation as to why he would have us contact the United Airlines ticketing department to see what his itinerary was. You know, and my ex-husband, or soon to be, we only just broke up a few months ago, and I'm finally, you know, coming on the other side and recovering from this and seeing it for what it is. But it's tremendously painful. The heartache is like nothing I've ever had in my life. So I understand if you're going through that or have gone through it. I totally understand. But his lies also were very random and irrelevant. But, you know, I understand lies that are protecting something you're trying to protect. Not that it's right, but I understand it. But when somebody's lying for the sake of it, for things that matter not, this is really when you get into some pathological territory, right? Like somebody's just making up things. You know, there's that joke. I'm sure you've heard it. It goes, how do you know when a narcissist is lying? Punchline is, their lips are moving. Ba-bum-bum, right? So this is kind of true. Even things that seemingly don't matter. He had pancakes for breakfast, and he tells me he has French toast, even though the pancake batter is still out. And it's that absurd. So so there's a few tactics that narcissists use within their schemes of lying and manipulation on that level. One is that they will lie in order to mess with your head in terms of altering your perception of reality. So maybe the lie isn't necessarily covering up something, right? Maybe the lie isn't actually, you know, serving a purpose to get them out of something or to help them out directly in a way. But what they are doing is they're creating this lie that paints reality into a different picture, or multiple lies, so that you may know that it's a lie. You may know, but because they're so animate and they're so forceful and oftentimes so believable, you start to second guess your own reality. And I can tell you for a fact, because I'm, as a life coach, I've started working with men and women, mostly women, but both, that have been victims of narcissistic abuse, or, you know, some type of abuse from the cluster B personality disorders. And I've even started working with one couple, but that's irrelevant. So I have seen that the people that are selected as the narcissist's targets, you know, some people say victims, I'm not too keen on that word, but as the narcissist's victims or targets, are almost exclusively high in empathy and understanding and forgiveness. They're people pleasers. They are, you know, oftentimes very kind, forgiving people. Of course they're going to pick people like this. I mean, there's nothing psychological that we even have to assess. It's pure and simple. If you want something from someone, you want to be able to manipulate them to get what you want, control them, even if it's through covert measures, you're going to do that to somebody who's going to give you something. If you do that to another narcissist, all they care about is themselves, they're not going to give. So here, the people that deserve it the least tend to get targeted the most by narcissists, which is very sad, actually, when you think about it. Not only for ourselves, but for everybody. And this type of behavior, I feel, is the type of behavior that will breed out good people. And not to be negative, because I've gone through a huge journey, and I've turned it around, and I'm starting to see the truth in it and the positivity in it, and include it into a different aspect of my life to make it positive. But when you look at how the kind, generous, forgiving, highly empathetic person is most targeted, you know, I get worried that it's going to breed it out of our society. The people are going to stop being that way. But anyway, I digress. Going back to the lying, you know, there's just so many reasons that they lie. So first, it's to gaslight you. It's another term you can look up if you haven't heard of it yet. It's basically where they're making you question your reality and your perception of reality. There's lying by omission. by not saying something that's important that makes a difference in the situation. Then, of course, there's direct lying, either be compulsive or pathological, where they're actually believing it, lying about cheating, lying about where they were. And one lie often snowballs into another, where they can't keep track of their lying and what they lied about. So for example, with my ex-husband, to this day, now I've gone no contact with him. Luckily, we don't have children together. And, but to this day, quote unquote, to the last time I talked to him, he's always been adamant he's never lied, even though I've had proof. Even though I saw emails on his email account and, his friends that would have no motive to tell me things, told me, all of these things that he clearly lied about. But when you talk about unraveling the lies, and this is where you can use this to your advantage, if you are either still in a relationship with a narcissist and you're trying to get out, or you're having a hard time, which I totally get, no judgment here. It's going to it might take you a while, that's okay. Just eventually get out of it. Or in retrospect, as you do kind of the assessment. And then also, so that in the future, you can look for these signs and know what to look for and run away. But there's a lot of, like I said, there are a lot of reasons for the lying. But one of the things that you can find if you pay close attention is that because they're lying so much, so often about even meaningless things, that often they don't remember what they lied about. So I'll give you an example. Shortly after my ex-husband and I were married, he had to go away to St. Louis on a business trip. And I will admit, look, I'm not perfect either. I had some trust issues because of my ex-boyfriend several years prior. So I was a little bit sketchy with him going, and he hadn't really told me. He just sprung it up on me, and I was taken aback, and I was a little bit worried. All he would have had to do was call me and touch base when he was gone to ease those worries, but he didn't want to do that. And he ignored me, and all day long it just started building. And he came home the next day. Now, why I was so skeptical, now I understand it was my gut. There was bombs going, not just red flags with bombs and grenades attached to them, just exploding, all over my brain with what was going on with him. But I wanted to see the good. I didn't want to end the relationship. I wanted to believe I was searching for him to get back to where it was at the beginning, in the idealization phase, so on and so on. So what had happened was, on his Facebook, suddenly I find he has a new Facebook account. He had taken down his old Facebook account, and it was gone. And suddenly he has a new one, which he never friended me on. Right? Now, I get it. Facebook and marriages, Facebook and relationships, drama can happen. But neither one of us were that big on Facebook. There's no reason why your spouse or boyfriend or girlfriend should not have you on there. To me, that's a big fucking clue. Sorry, part of my language. But it is. And I, of course, ignored it because I didn't want to face it. I didn't want to end the relationship, and I knew I had to. So anyway, the day he's coming home, earlier that day in the morning, I found this other Facebook profile, and I was like, whoa, what is going on? And I just had a bad feeling, and I looked at his friends list, and there was this girl he had just become friends with a couple days prior. From where? St. Louis. Clearly now looking back, clearly he was cheating or doing something, pretending to go to work for St. Louis, or really going to work for St. Louis and lining up some girl while he was there. I don't know. I don't have the facts, but I know something happened because I know he lied. Because again, they can't keep track of their lies. So he comes home. We kind of have a blowout about it. I was very upset. I said I wanted to leave the relationship. He begged me and made compromises and seemed like, there's my wonderful husband again. So the next day, I'm apologizing for overreacting because, of course, I always had to apologize. And I apologized for overreacting, and he had said to me, yeah, I don't understand why you were so upset about that girl. I never met her before. I've never spoke to her before. She randomly Facebook friended me through some other person that I didn't know. And the only interaction we ever had was, hi, how are you? Some generic, I know so-and-so, and nothing ever happened. We never even had a conversation. That's Tuesday. Now, Thursday, it gets brought back up again, the situation, in another positive way. From my end, kind of reaffirming my own remorse for having overreacted and threatened to leave the marriage or relationship. And now, this is what he says. Yeah, I just never understood why you were so upset. That girl, I just only talked to her a few times, and the only reason why I met with her was because her boyfriend needed to have his hearing aids adjusted. Like, all this new story where he met her. He had a phone number. And who was she? Some random girl that knew to call him because she knew he was an audiologist or whatever, a hearing aid dispenser, working with people that are deaf and have hearing problems. If she has a boyfriend, then why on her Facebook was it single? Why? There was no men on her Facebook page. I could see almost everything. It said single on there. How would she So there's all these questions, right? And I remember getting off the phone and being like, what the? My stomach just turned. And I knew something was up. I knew it. My intuition was right. That kind of lying where they forget what they had said previous is a huge indicator that something's going on, obviously. But when I would confront him on lying, only recently have I had real proof and information about different women, online dating, different places that he went when he would say he would go to Florida for work, I did blah, 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 whatever. Swingers clubs. Who knows what else. But at the time, I didn't have this direct proof. But to me, no, not to me, in actuality, that was enough proof. Because both truths can't be reality. So either it was the first thing he said or the second thing he said, but it can't be both. So one of the times he's lying. There you go, checkmate, right? But no, not with him. And it would get turned around on me when I had brought it up the one time, of course. It got completely turned around on me to the point where I couldn't defend myself. And it ended up me just begging and pleading and like normal. So anyway, with lying, I think it's important for us to use our intuition and to be vigilant. There is no harm in being vigilant. You don't have to react on it, but being aware. And one thing I want to say, and this is as much to myself as it is to anybody listening to this. Excuse me. We deserve to be treated well, to be treated honest, and we should not allow for anything less than that in our lives. Point blank. I think it's important. Look, we have gone through narcissistic abuse, been in a relationship with someone like this. It was awful. It was horrible. It decimated probably your self-esteem and your self-worth just like it did me. It made you question the honesty of everybody in this world, the truthfulness, and so on. But we have to, at the end of the day, find some nugget in all this that will help us and ensure that this never happens again and grow from it. So I think with the lying, it's really important that we don't brush things under the sand. And that our very first indicator of lying, we get out. Just get out. The next time, just get out. Because even if they aren't personality disordered, lying in and of itself is a huge issue. And it shows what kind of character somebody has and how they really think about you. So that's it for today. I'll probably do another podcast and video on lying and manipulation within communication and in terms of how to handle the recovery process of that moving forward. All right, everyone. Namaste.